Don't marry for love, Owen. Look at me. I'm stuck with you. Those words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest as I stood in the doorway of our pristine kitchen, holding 2 glasses of wine I'd brought for my wife Dana and her best friend Kara. The women didn't see me there, too absorbed in their gossip session to notice my presence. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Owen Mercer, 44 years old, and until 30 seconds ago, I thought I had a decent marriage. I work as a financial planner in Westport, Connecticut, managing portfolios for wealthy retirees who think a bad day is when their yacht needs maintenance. Dana runs an interior design business that caters to the same crowd, people with more money than sense and enough time to redecorate their homes every 2 years. Seriously, Kara, Dana continued, her voice dripping with disdain. I could have married anyone. Remember that contractor Sebastian? Now there's a man who knows how to make a woman feel alive. Kara laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Sebastian Lowe? That gorgeous piece of rough trade who redid your bathroom? Girl, you're playing with fire. Maybe I like getting burned, Dana replied. At least it would be more exciting than listening to Owen explain compound interest for the millionth time. I stood there like an idiot, expensive wine growing warm in my hands, listening to my wife of 12 years describe our marriage like it was a prison sentence. The worst part? She wasn't wrong about being boring. I knew exactly who I was, a numbers guy who wore sensible shoes and drove a sensible car and lived a sensible life in our sensible house with our sensible marriage. But stuck? That implied she had no choice. I walked into the kitchen, set the wine glasses down with deliberate care, and looked directly at my wife. Dana's face went white, her perfectly applied makeup unable to hide the shock in her eyes. Trapped? I said, my voice surprisingly calm. You're free. Then I walked out of my own house, leaving behind 12 years of marriage, a dinner party with 6 guests, and the sound of Kara's nervous laughter echoing through rooms I'd helped pay for with my boring, steady income. My phone started buzzing before I reached the end of our driveway. Dana, probably. Or maybe one of our dinner guests, eager to know what the hell just happened. I turned the phone off and kept walking. The thing about being the boring guy is that people underestimate you. They assume you don't have a backbone, that you'll take whatever they dish out because you're too weak or too comfortable to fight back. Dana had been testing that theory for months, maybe years, with little comments and casual cruelties that I'd absorbed like a sponge. Owen never takes risks, she'd say at parties, smiling like it was a joke while her eyes stayed cold. My husband's idea of excitement is reorganizing his filing cabinet, she'd tell her friends, loud enough for me to hear. I married him for security, not passion, she'd confided to her sister last Christmas, apparently forgetting I was in the next room. Each comment was a small cut, designed to make me feel smaller, more insignificant. The end of a marriage by 1,000 tiny wounds. But tonight, hearing her talk about Sebastian Lowe, Sebastian Bash Lowe, the contractor who'd spent 3 weeks in our house installing a new master bathroom, something inside me finally snapped. I walked for 2 hours through our upscale neighborhood, past houses that looked exactly like ours, filled with people living exactly like we had been. Westport at night is peaceful in the way only expensive suburbs can be. Quiet streets, manicured lawns, the soft glow of security lights protecting people who have enough money to believe they're safe from the messier parts of life. By the time I made it home, the dinner guests were gone. Dana was waiting in the living room, still wearing the black dress she'd bought specifically to impress our friends. She looked beautiful and furious, a combination I'd once found irresistible. What the hell was that about? She demanded. Which part? The part where you told Kara you could have married anyone? Or the part where you talked about how exciting Sebastian is? Her face flushed. You were eavesdropping. I was bringing you wine, in my own house, that I pay for. Our house, she corrected. Actually, no. It's my house. My name on the deed. My money for the down payment. My credit that qualified for the mortgage. But don't worry. If you're trapped, I'm happy to set you free. Dana's expression shifted from anger to something that might have been fear. Owen, you're being ridiculous. I was just venting to a friend. Every married woman complains about her husband. Do they all talk about how exciting other men are? Silence. Long enough for me to know I'd hit the target. Sebastian was just what? Just the man who makes you feel alive while your boring husband pays the bills? She tried a different approach, moving closer, her voice softening. Honey, you're taking this all wrong. I love you. I chose you. No, Dana. You settled for me. There's a difference. I went upstairs to our bedroom. My bedroom, technically, since my name was on everything, and started packing a bag. Dana followed, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors like a countdown timer. Where are you going? Hotel. I need some space to think. About what? I stopped packing and looked at her. Really looked. When had she become a stranger? When had her smile become a weapon instead of a gift? About whether I want to stay trapped too. Chapter 2. The Evidence. The Westport Inn wasn't exactly the Four Seasons, but it was clean and quiet, and most importantly, it wasn't filled with memories of a marriage that had apparently been fading while I wasn't paying attention. I'd been there 3 days when my phone rang with a call from Nigel Harrison, my lawyer, and one of the few people I'd told about my situation. Owen, we need to talk. Can you come to my office this morning? Nigel had been my friend since college, back when we were both young and stupid enough to believe that good intentions were enough to build a life on. He'd gone to law school while I'd gotten my financial planning certification, and we'd spent the last 20 years watching each other navigate the complicated business of being adults. His office in downtown Westport was all dark wood and leather chairs, the kind of place designed to make clients feel like their money was in serious hands. Nigel looked serious too, which wasn't unusual, but there was something else in his expression that I couldn't quite read. How are you holding up? He asked after his secretary brought us coffee. I've been better. Dana's been calling non-stop, alternating between apologies and accusations. Yesterday she told me I was having a midlife crisis. This morning she said I was emotionally abusive for walking out on our dinner party. Are you planning to go back? I don't know. Maybe. We've got 12 years together, Nigel. That has to count for something, right? He opened a folder on his desk and slid a photograph across to me. It showed Dana and Sebastian Lowe in what was clearly a passionate embrace, standing next to his pickup truck in the parking lot of the Riverside Cafe. The timestamp showed it was taken 2 weeks ago, while I'd been in Boston for a client conference. Where did you get this? I hired a private investigator after our conversation on Monday. I'm sorry, Owen. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. I stared at the photo, feeling something cold and hard settling in my chest. It wasn't surprise exactly, more like confirmation of something I'd suspected but hadn't wanted to believe. How long? At least 3 months, probably longer. There are more photos if you want to see them. Hotel receipts, text messages. Text messages? Nigel slid another document across the desk. It was a printout of phone records showing dozens of calls and texts between Dana's number and one listed as S. Lowe. The messages were explicit. Can't wait to feel your hands on me again, read one from Dana. Your husband's out of town next week. My place, read another. Owen's so boring in bed. You make me remember what it's like to be a woman, read a third. I set the papers down carefully, fighting the urge to crumple them into a ball. How did you get these? Dana's been careless. She's been using the shared phone plan you set up, and as the account holder, you have legal access to the records. The content came from Sebastian's phone. Apparently, he's been showing off to his buddies at the construction site. Showing off? Bragging about sleeping with a rich man's wife. Some of his co-workers thought it was hilarious. One of them happened to be dating my investigator's cousin. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. So I'm not just a cuckold, I'm a joke. You're a man whose wife betrayed him. What you do with that information is up to you. I looked at the photos again. Dana looked happy in a way I hadn't seen in years, radiant even. Sebastian looked like exactly what he was, a good-looking guy in his late 30s who worked with his hands and probably drove too fast and knew how to make a woman feel desired. What are my options? Legally? Connecticut is a no-fault divorce state, so the adultery doesn't affect property division or alimony. But it might affect how sympathetic a judge is if things get ugly. And financially? Nigel smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. That's where things get interesting. Remember when you set up those trusts 5 years ago? The ones I recommended for tax purposes? Vaguely. The house is in a trust. Your investment accounts are in a trust. The cars, the boat, even Dana's business equipment. It's all in trusts that you control. Technically, Dana doesn't own anything except her personal belongings and whatever's in her individual checking account. I felt a spark of something I hadn't experienced in years. It might have been hope, or it might have been the desire for revenge. How much is in her individual account? About $3,000. And the trusts? Just over $2 million, not counting the house. So if I divorce her, she gets whatever a judge decides is fair, but there's not much to divide. The trusts were set up before the marriage deteriorated, for legitimate tax purposes. She'd have to prove you were trying to hide assets, which would be difficult since everything was done openly and legally. I sat back in the leather chair, my mind racing. For the first time since I'd walked out of my own house, I felt like I had some control over the situation. What would you do, Nigel? If it were your wife? I'd make sure she understood exactly what she was giving up, and I'd make sure everyone else understood it too. Everyone else? Owen, you've been the stable, reliable guy your whole adult life. You've paid for everything, supported everyone, been the foundation that let Dana build her little social empire. If that foundation disappears, what happens to the empire? I thought about Dana's business, which depended heavily on referrals from our social circle. I thought about her friends, most of whom were married to men like me, men who valued loyalty and stability over passion and excitement. I thought about Sebastian Lowe, who probably assumed he was trading up from whatever kind of women he usually dated. They'd all turn on her. Probably. The question is whether you want to be the kind of man who lets that happen. I looked at the photos one more time, then slid them back across the desk. Set up the divorce papers. And Nigel, I want everyone to know exactly why. Chapter 3. The unraveling Dana was waiting for me when I returned to the house that evening, sitting at our kitchen island with a glass of wine and an expression I'd never seen before. She looked smaller somehow, less sure of herself. We need to talk, she said. I know about Sebastian. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. Dana's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, fear, defiance, and finally something that might have been relief. How long have you known? Does it matter? She took a long sip of wine. I never meant for it to happen. But it did happen. For months. Yes. And you told him I was boring in bed. Her face flushed. Owen, and you told him about our finances. What? No, I never. You told him I was rich. That's what this was about, wasn't it? Not just the excitement, but the money, too. Sebastian gets the thrill of sleeping with a wealthy man's wife, and you get to feel like a rebel while still enjoying the lifestyle I provide. Dana set down her wine glass with shaking hands. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I felt invisible, Owen, like I was just furniture in my own life. Sebastian made me feel seen. And I didn't? When was the last time you really looked at me? Not just glanced up from your computer or your phone, but actually looked at me. The question hit harder than I'd expected because I couldn't answer it. When had I stopped seeing her? When had our marriage become just another routine like brushing my teeth or checking my email? That doesn't excuse what you did. No, it doesn't. But it explains it. We sat in silence for a moment, two people who'd shared a life but had somehow become strangers. The kitchen around us was perfect. Granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, fresh flowers that Dana replaced twice a week. It looked like a magazine spread, which was probably the point. "What happens now?" she asked. "I filed for divorce today." The words hit her like a physical blow. "Owen, please, we can work this out. I'll end things with Sebastian. We can go to counseling." "It's too late for that." "Why? Because I made a mistake?" "Because you didn't make a mistake, Dana. You made a choice. Dozens of choices over months. Every time you met him, every time you lied to me, every time you came home and pretended everything was normal, those were all choices." She started crying then, tears running down her face in a way that would have broken my heart a week ago. Now it just made me tired. "I love you," she whispered. "No, you don't. You love the life I gave you. There's a difference." My phone buzzed with a text message. Without thinking, I glanced at it, and Dana saw my expression change. "What is it?" I showed her the screen. The message was from Rich Patterson, our neighbor. "Hey man, saw the photos. Sorry. Let me know if you need anything." "What photos?" Dana asked, but I could see in her eyes that she already knew. "The ones of you and Sebastian at the Riverside Cafe, and the hotel in Stamford, and his apartment on Elm Street." Her face went white. "Who has them?" "Everyone by now. Rich forwarded them to me, but I'm guessing they're making the rounds through the whole neighborhood." Dana grabbed my phone, scrolling through the messages that had been coming in all day. Our friends, our neighbors, even some of her clients, everyone offering support to me and, by implication, condemning her. "This will ruin me," she said. "Yes, it probably will." "How can you be so calm about this?" "Because I'm not the one who cheated." She threw my phone across the kitchen, where it hit the wall and clattered to the floor. "You bastard, you planned this." "I didn't plan anything, Dana. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences of your actions." "My business will probably survive if you're smart about damage control, but your reputation won't. And Sebastian's definitely won't, once his employer finds out he's been using company time to have affairs with clients' wives." "You wouldn't." "I already did. I called Morrison Construction this afternoon." Dana stared at me like I'd become a stranger, which I suppose I had. The boring, predictable husband she'd taken for granted was gone, replaced by someone willing to fight back. "I don't know who you are anymore," she said. "I'm the man you called boring for 12 years, the man you settled for, the man who paid for everything while you played house with someone else. But I'm also the man who's done being taken for granted." I picked up my phone from where she'd thrown it, checking to make sure it still worked. More messages had come in. Friends offering guest rooms, lawyers offering services, even a few women offering comfort. Word traveled fast in our social circle. "Pack a bag," I said. "What?" "Pack a bag. You can stay at Kara's or your sister's or wherever you want, but you're not staying here tonight. This is my house too. Actually, it's not. It's held in a trust that I control. Nigel explained the paperwork to me today." For the first time since I'd known her, Dana looked genuinely afraid. "You can't just throw me out." "I'm not throwing you out. I'm asking you to leave. There's a difference. And if I refuse? Then I'll call the police and show them the photos of you with Sebastian, along with the text messages where you talk about having an affair with him in our bed. I'll explain that I feel unsafe and uncomfortable in my own home. They'll ask you to leave." Dana looked around the kitchen as if seeing it for the first time, or maybe for the last time. This house had been her kingdom, the place where she'd entertained friends and clients, where she'd built her identity as the wife of a successful man. "I need time to figure things out." "You've had months to figure things out. You chose Sebastian. I chose excitement. I chose feeling alive. then go be excited somewhere else. She went upstairs to pack, her heels clicking on the stairs like a countdown timer. I sat at the kitchen island, drinking her abandoned wine and reading the messages on my phone. The support was overwhelming, people I'd barely spoken to in years, reaching out to offer help, to express outrage on my behalf, to share their own stories of betrayal and recovery. But the most interesting message came from Tom Bradley, who owned the construction company where Sebastian worked. "Owen, got your call. Lowe's been terminated effective immediately. Sorry this happened to you. Let me know if you need any work done on the house. I'll give you the friend discount." When Dana came back downstairs with a suitcase, I showed her the message. "You really did it," she said. "You destroyed his job." I told his boss that he'd been conducting personal business on company time, using company equipment, in a way that reflected poorly on the business. Tom made his own decision about what to do with that information. He has a daughter, Owen, a little girl. Then maybe he should have thought about that before he decided to sleep with married women. Dana stood in the doorway of our kitchen, looking lost and small and nothing like the confident woman who'd been entertaining friends here just a few days ago. "This isn't over," she said. "Yes, it is. You just haven't accepted it yet." After she left, I poured myself a proper drink and sat in my living room, surrounded by the life we'd built together. Tomorrow, I knew, the real battle would begin. Dana would hire a lawyer, probably a good one, and she'd fight for whatever she could get. She'd try to paint me as controlling, vindictive, maybe even abusive. But tonight, for the first time in years, I felt like myself again. Fought to Chapter 4. The Reckoning. The confrontation I'd been expecting came 3 days later, but not from Dana. It came from our former friends, led by Marcus and Jennifer Walsh, who showed up at my door on Saturday morning with righteous indignation and a complete misunderstanding of the situation. "Owen, we need to talk," Marcus said when I opened the door. Behind him stood Jennifer, along with Tom and Susan Miller and Brad Chen, all couples from our social circle, all looking like they were there for an intervention. "Come in," I said, genuinely curious about what they had to say. They arranged themselves in my living room like a tribunal, with Marcus apparently elected as their spokesperson. I'd known these people for years, had hosted them for dinner parties and barbecues, had listened to their problems and celebrated their successes. Now they looked at me like I was a stranger. "We're here about Dana," Marcus began. "What about her?" "What you did to her was cruel, Owen, humiliating her like that, destroying her reputation, getting Sebastian fired. It was vindictive and unnecessary." I felt something cold settle in my chest. Vindictive. "She made a mistake," Jennifer added. "A human mistake. But you've turned it into a public execution." "She had an affair for months. Multiple affairs, actually. Sebastian wasn't the first." "That's between you and her," Tom said. "It didn't need to become everyone's business." I looked around the room at these people I'd considered friends, trying to understand how they'd reached this conclusion. Let me make sure I understand. Dana cheated on me repeatedly, lied to me for months, humiliated me behind my back, and I'm the villain because I didn't keep it secret? "You could have handled it privately," Susan said. "Worked things out like adults." "The way she handled it privately when she was sleeping with Sebastian?" "That's not the same thing," Brad said. "Isn't it? She made her choices public every time she met him at restaurants where our friends might see them. She made it public when she brought him into our house. She made it public when she told her friends how boring I was in bed." "She's devastated, Owen," Jennifer said. "She's staying with Kara, crying constantly, barely eating. Her business is falling apart because clients are canceling left and right." "And Sebastian? What about him? Is anyone concerned about how devastated he is? How his life has been affected?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "That's different. He knew she was married." So did Dana. The room fell silent. I could see them trying to work out the logic of their position, that Dana deserved sympathy and protection while Sebastian deserved whatever he got. That I should have quietly absorbed the humiliation to preserve everyone's comfort. Look, Tom said, we've all been friends for years. Marriages go through rough patches. People make mistakes. The important thing is to handle it with dignity. Dignity, I repeated. Like the dignity Dana showed when she told Kara I was boring in bed? Or the dignity she showed when she brought her lover into our house while I was paying for everything? You're being unreasonable, Susan said. Am I? Let me ask you something, Susan. If Tom was having an affair, and you found out about it, and everyone in our social circle knew about it, would you want them to tell you? Or would you want them to protect Tom's privacy while you lived in ignorance? Susan glanced at her husband. That's different. How? Because Tom wouldn't do that to me. How do you know? The question hung in the air like a challenge. I could see the doubt creeping into Susan's eyes, the sudden awareness that if Tom was capable of deception, she might be the last to know, just like I had been. This is getting off track, Marcus said. The point is, Dana needs support right now, not more punishment. Then support her. No one's stopping you. We can't, Jennifer said. Not while you're actively trying to destroy her. I'm not trying to destroy her. I'm just not trying to save her anymore. What's that supposed to mean? I stood up, suddenly tired of the whole conversation. It means that for 12 years, I've been Dana's safety net. I paid the bills, I smoothed over her problems, I made excuses for her behavior, I protected her from consequences. But I'm not doing that anymore. So you're just going to let her crash and burn? I'm going to let her be responsible for her own choices. Brad leaned forward. Owen, think about what you're saying. Dana made a mistake, but she doesn't deserve to lose everything. What exactly is she losing, Brad? Her marriage to a man she called boring? Her comfortable lifestyle that she took for granted? Her reputation as a faithful wife, which was a lie anyway? Her livelihood, her friends, her place in the community. All things that depended on maintaining a facade. If the facade was false, why should I help maintain it? Marcus stood up, his face flushed with anger. Because that's what decent people do, Owen. They don't destroy someone's life over a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk on the way home. A mistake is double booking a dinner reservation. What Dana did was a series of deliberate choices made over months, with full knowledge of the consequences. You're being sanctimonious, Jennifer said, and you're being naive. Tell me, Jennifer, if this had been reversed, if I'd been the one having an affair, would you be here asking Dana to protect my reputation? Would you be telling her to handle it with dignity and privacy? Jennifer's silence was answer enough. You know what the real problem is? I continued. It's not that I'm being vindictive. It's that you're all uncomfortable with the idea that actions have consequences. Dana's affair threatens your comfortable assumptions about marriage and loyalty and trust. It's easier to blame me for making it public than to deal with the fact that it happened at all. That's not true, Tom said, but he didn't sound convinced. Isn't it? How many of you suspected something was going on and didn't tell me? How many of you saw Dana and Sebastian together and decided it wasn't your business? More silence. I had my answer. You all protected Dana's secret while I was being humiliated. Now, you want me to protect her from the consequences. But where was this concern for privacy and dignity when I was the one being betrayed? Susan stood up. We should go. Yes, you should. And while you're at it, you should decide whether you're my friends or Dana's friends, because you can't be both. Not anymore. After they left, I sat in my living room and realized that I'd just lost most of my social circle. These people who'd eaten at my table, who'd borrowed my tools and asked for financial advice and celebrated holidays with me, they were gone, choosing Dana's comfort over my dignity. It should have hurt more than it did. Instead, I felt lighter, like I'd been carrying a weight I hadn't realized was there. These weren't really my friends, anyway. They were Dana's friends who'd tolerated me, couples who'd included us as a unit, but had never really cared about me as an individual. My phone rang. Nigel. How are you holding up? I just got a visit from the friendship police. Apparently I'm being too mean to my cheating wife. Ah, the social circle has chosen sides. They have, and it's not mine. That's probably for the best, Owen. You need people in your life who value loyalty and honesty. Those people clearly don't. Dana's lawyer called yesterday. She's demanding spousal support and half of everything. Let her demand. Demanding and getting are two different things. What are my chances? Better than hers. The trust structure is solid, the adultery is well documented, and she has no legitimate claim to need support. Her business income was substantial before this all came out. Was? Word is that she's lost about 60% of her clients. Turns out that wealthy women don't like hiring interior decorators who sleep with their contractors. I should have felt sorry for her. A week ago I would have. But that was before I'd learned that sympathy was a one-way street in our marriage, before I'd discovered that the friends I'd thought we shared were really her friends who'd been humoring me. Nigel, I want to make an offer. What kind of offer? I'll give Dana $100,000 and 6 months to get back on her feet. In exchange, she signs the divorce papers without contest and agrees to a non-disclosure agreement about our marriage. That's generous. It's practical. I want this over with, and I want to move on with my life. And if she refuses? Then we go to court, and she gets whatever the judge decides she deserves, which, given the circumstances and the trust structure, probably won't be much. I'll make the call. After I hung up, I walked through the house that had been our home, seeing it clearly for the first time in years. It was beautiful, perfectly decorated, a showcase of Dana's talent and my money, but it felt empty, like a museum display of a life that had never been quite real. Tomorrow, I would start the process of building something new, something honest. Chapter 5. The Final Truth. Dana's response to my offer came not through lawyers, but through a late-night visit that caught me completely off guard. I was in my study, reading financial reports and trying to pretend that my life hadn't been turned upside down, when I heard her key in the front door. She still had a key. In all the chaos of the past 2 weeks, I'd forgotten to change the locks. Owen? Her voice echoed through the house, uncertain and small. I found her in the living room, looking around like she was seeing it for the first time. She'd lost weight, and there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old concern, the instinct to comfort her that had defined our marriage. You look terrible, I said. Thanks. You look better. Rested. I am rested. Amazing what happens when you're not lying awake wondering why your wife doesn't want to touch you anymore. She flinched. Owen, please. Can we talk? Really talk? Without the lawyers and the anger and all the noise? What's left to say? Everything. She sat down on the couch we'd picked out together 5 years ago, patting the cushion beside her in a gesture that was achingly familiar. Sit with me, please. Against my better judgment, I sat down, but not next to her. I chose the chair across from the couch, maintaining distance. I got your offer, she said. And? It's fair. More than fair. But before I sign anything, I need you to understand something. What? Why I did it. Why I threw away 12 years for someone like Sebastian. Dana, no, let me finish. You deserve to know the truth, and I deserve to tell it. She took a shaky breath, and I realized she'd been drinking. Not drunk, but enough to loosen the careful control she'd maintained even in our worst fights. I didn't love Sebastian, she said. I know that probably makes it worse, but I need you to know that. I didn't leave you for love. Then why? Because he made me feel like I mattered, not like a wife or a business partner or a social accessory, but like a woman, like someone worth pursuing. I pursued you once, 12 years ago, and then you caught me, and the pursuit was over. The words stung because they contained enough truth to hurt. When had I stopped trying to win her? When had our marriage become a comfortable routine instead of a daily choice? That doesn't excuse what you did. No, it doesn't. But it explains it. Owen, when was the last time you looked at me, really looked at me, and wanted me, not out of habit or obligation, but actual desire? I opened my mouth to answer and realized I couldn't. When had desire been replaced by routine? When had passion been replaced by politeness? I can't remember either, she said quietly. And that scared me. I'm 42 years old, and I felt invisible in my own life. Sebastian made me feel seen. So you had an affair. So I made a terrible mistake that I've been paying for every day since. Have you? Because from where I sit, it looks like you got exactly what you wanted. Freedom from your boring husband, excitement with a younger man, a chance to feel alive again. Dana laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what you think? That I got what I wanted? Didn't you? Sebastian dumped me the day the photos went public, blocked my number, wouldn't return my calls, told his friends I was a crazy rich snake who was stalking him. I felt a flicker of something that might have been satisfaction, followed immediately by shame for feeling it. I'm sorry. Are you? Really? I'm sorry you're in pain. I'm not sorry that actions have consequences. She nodded like she'd expected that answer. Fair enough. But Owen, I need you to know, I never stopped loving you. I stopped feeling loved by you, but I never stopped loving you. That's not the same thing. No, it's not. And maybe that's the real tragedy here. We both failed, Owen. You stopped seeing me, and I stopped believing you could see me. Instead of fighting for our marriage, we both just gave up. I didn't give up. I didn't even know there was a fight. Because I didn't tell you. Because I was too proud, or too scared, or too stupid to say, Owen, I'm drowning in this perfect life we've built, and I need you to save me. We sat in silence for a moment. Two people who'd shared a life, but had somehow become strangers to each other. The house around us was full of memories. The couch where we'd watched movies, the kitchen where we'd cooked together in the early years, the stairs we'd climbed to the bedroom where we'd made love and fought and dreamed about the future. What happens now? She asked. You sign the papers, we get divorced, we both start over. And us? Is there any chance? No. The word came out harder than I'd intended, but it needed to be said. Dana's face crumpled, and for a moment she looked like the young woman I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, she said, but I had to ask. It's not about forgiveness, Dana. It's about trust, and I'll never be able to trust you again. Because of Sebastian? Because of the lies. Because of the months of looking me in the eye and pretending everything was fine while you were with someone else. Because of the way you talked about me to your friends, to him, to anyone who would listen. I was angry. So was I. But I didn't cheat. She nodded, accepting the judgment. I'll sign the papers. Thank you. Can I ask you something? What? Are you happy now that you've won? The question caught me off guard. Was I happy? I was free, certainly. I was vindicated. I was financially secure and legally protected and morally superior. But happy? I'm not sure I remember what happy feels like, I said honestly. Maybe that was part of the problem. After she left, I sat in the living room until dawn, thinking about the conversation and the 12 years that had led to it. Dana was right about one thing. We'd both failed. I'd stopped seeing her as a woman and started seeing her as a wife, a role rather than a person. She'd stopped believing in us and started looking elsewhere for validation. But understanding didn't equal forgiveness, and explanation didn't excuse betrayal. Some mistakes were too big to come back from, some trust too broken to repair. My phone buzzed with a text from Nigel. Papers signed and filed, it's over. It was over. 12 years of marriage, ended with signatures on legal documents and the division of assets that had once represented shared dreams. I should have felt something: sadness, relief, anger, regret. Instead, I just felt tired. But as I sat there watching the sun rise over the neighborhood where Dana and I had tried to build a life together, I realized something else. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again. Not Dana's husband, not the boring guy who paid the bills, not the victim of someone else's choices. Just Owen Mercer, 44 years old, starting over. Chapter 6. Free. 6 months later, I was standing in the kitchen of my new house, a smaller place in a different town, with no memories of failed marriage or false friends, when my phone rang with a call from Tom Bradley, the contractor who'd fired Sebastian. "Owen, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from Nigel." "Not at all, Tom. What can I do for you?" "It's more what I can do for you. I thought you'd want to know. Sebastian Lowe was arrested yesterday." I set down my coffee cup. "For what?" "Theft, fraud, breach of contract. Turns out he's been running a side business, stealing materials from job sites and selling them. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars over the past 2 years." "How did you find out?" "Anonymous tip led to an investigation. Apparently someone had been documenting his activities for months. Photos, receipts, testimony from other workers. The evidence was overwhelming." I felt a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. "Any idea who might have provided that tip?" "None whatsoever. But whoever it was did their homework. Sebastian's looking at serious jail time." After I hung up, I sat in my new kitchen, in my new house, in my new life, and allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. The anonymous tip had been mine, of course. The investigation I'd hired hadn't just documented Sebastian's affair with my wife. It had uncovered a pattern of theft and fraud that went back years. Sebastian Lowe had thought he was smart, seducing a rich man's wife and bragging about it to his friends. He'd thought the worst that could happen was losing his job. He'd been wrong. My phone rang again. This time it was Kara, Dana's former best friend. "Owen, I need to talk to you." "About what?" "About Dana. She's not doing well." "That's not my problem anymore." "She's drinking too much. She's lost most of her clients. She's been asking about you, wondering if there's any chance." "There isn't. Owen, please. I know she hurt you, but she's destroying herself. Maybe if you could just talk to her." "Kara, let me ask you something. When Dana was having her affair, did you know?" Silence. "Did you know she was cheating on me?" Yes, but Owen, did you think I deserved to know? It wasn't my place to. Did you think I deserved to know that my wife was sleeping with another man?" "Yes," she said quietly. "But you didn't tell me." "No. You protected Dana's secret while I was being humiliated. You helped her lie to me for months, and now you want me to help her because she's sad." "She made a mistake. She made dozens of mistakes, and so did you, and now you both get to live with the consequences." I hung up and blocked her number. The truth was, I did know how Dana was doing. The same investigator who documented Sebastian's crimes had been keeping me informed about my ex-wife's situation. She'd lost her house, the one I'd bought and she'd decorated, and was living in a small apartment across town. Her business had collapsed when her wealthy clients decided they didn't want to associate with someone who'd had an affair with a contractor. She'd been arrested for drunk driving 2 weeks ago. I could have helped her. The $100,000 I'd given her in the divorce settlement was gone, spent on lawyers and rent and apparently alcohol, but I could have given her more. I could have made some calls, smoothed things over with potential clients, helped her rebuild her reputation. But I didn't. Not because I was cruel, but because I was finally free. Free from the obligation to fix Dana's problems, to clean up her messes, to sacrifice my dignity for her comfort. Free from friends who valued social harmony over loyalty. Free from a life built on lies and maintained through willful blindness. My new life was smaller but more honest. I had a house I could afford on my own, friends who knew the truth about my divorce and supported me anyway, work that fulfilled me without requiring me to enable someone else's betrayals. I was dating again, nothing serious yet, but women who saw me as Owen rather than as Dana's boring husband. Women who appreciated stability instead of taking it for granted, who valued honesty over excitement. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I opened it to find a delivery man with a large envelope. Owen Mercer? That's me. Inside was a letter from Sebastian Lowe, written from the county jail where he was awaiting trial. Mr. Mercer, it began, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to tell you something. I'm sorry for what I did. Not just the affair, but all of it. I thought I was smart. Thought I deserved what you had. I was wrong. Dana told me you were boring, that you didn't appreciate her, that you took her for granted. Maybe that was true. I don't know. But you didn't deserve what we did to you. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me someday. I know I don't deserve it, but I had to ask. I read the letter twice, then threw it in the trash. Sebastian was right about one thing. He didn't deserve forgiveness. Not because what he'd done was unforgivable, but because forgiveness implied a relationship worth preserving. Sebastian Lowe was nothing to me now, except a cautionary tale about the consequences of thinking other people's lives were there for the taking. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, a woman I'd been seeing for the past month. She was a librarian, divorced like me, with 2 teenage kids and a wry sense of humor that reminded me why I'd once enjoyed talking to people. Dinner tonight? I'm cooking, and I promise it's better than whatever you're planning to microwave. I texted back, I'll bring wine, the good stuff. As I got ready to leave my house, bought with my money, decorated to my taste, filled with my things and my choices, I caught sight of myself in the hallway mirror. I looked different than I had a year ago. Leaner, more confident, more at ease in my own skin. I looked like a man who'd been trapped and had fought his way free. Dana had been right about one thing. That night she'd come to the house for our final conversation. We'd both failed in our marriage, but failure wasn't the end of the story. It was just the end of that story. This was the beginning of a new one, and this time, I was writing it myself. As I locked the door behind me and walked to my car, I thought about the title Dana had unknowingly given me that night at our dinner party, when she'd complained about being trapped, and I'd told her she was free. She'd been free all along. She'd just been too comfortable in her cage to realize it. Now we both were free. The difference was, I'd learned to appreciate it. The end character count, 48,847.